family. Welcome back to the Explore the Extraordinary podcast. My name is Betty, and today I'm joined by Rev Ned. And Rev and we're in another spiritual community together with actually another member of IANDS. And he's an amazing, interesting man. And I'm so excited to introduce him to our community here. So he's a spiritual teacher, a near-death experiencer. He's been married for nearly 50 years. I think that's quite an accomplishment. And earth healing ceremony leader, a Lakota ceremony leader, amazing, just this huge wealth of spiritual information for sure. And I'm super excited for your willingness to serve our community at IANDS. I'm going to toss it right over to you to introduce yourself to our community.
Thank you. It's an honor. That's a big word in the Earthways that you asked me to be here with you in this sacred space. There's a Persian poet I used to study and carry his book around, Rumi, who said, quote, "The wounds is the place where the light enters." End of quote. The wounds is a place where the light enters you, me. And that's been part of my life ever since I can remember, with health challenges and things that were like cancer when I was real little, and had a back of, they said when I was 16, the back of a 60-year-old man. And these are the things, and they kept going as I got older, where the light did shine through all the darkness, all the trying times that I had, experiences. For example, I have a very close, let's say, relative, friend, and he wanted to get me in court. He was going through a divorce, and the wife and I said, "No, don't you or your wife get us involved." And he did, and I called his lawyer, got off, and that created a wound for about 10 years. And being a teacher of agape love, unconditional love, I call it pure love. No strings attached, no conditions have to be met. And I applied that in that relationship for 10 years, wrote love letters, prayed, sent energizers. I've been told by the elders how to send like a love vessel and let it continue to represent me over this space. And this bracelet that I have on was gifted to me by this individual, that we came together and we're closer than we've ever been the last 4 or 5 years. And it's just amazing what working with that kind of love, no matter what the darkness is, no matter what the wound is, the light for Rev has always came into me. Growing up, I was always close to creation. I wasn't raised in any particular religious establishment or structure. The ponds, the trees. We used to have an amazing tree called Chip and Dale that the neighborhood guys and gals would meet at, and it was burnt out, probably hit by maybe lightning. And we could go way up in the tree from the inside where it had been burnt out and fallen out. And we had so many meetings there, but we had ponds and woods and all kinds of things. And that was my grounding connection to the Creator and to all that is. And my mom and dad supported that. Even as I got older, I'd spend 10, 12, 14 hours on snow days just out in the woods, just being close. I got so close. I had a little place called Walden Pond that I was really close to. And there, a fox would come up to me. You get friends with the water, with the elements and the wind people. Mother Earth, the four-leggeds, the crawly ones, they were all connecting, and they communicate things constantly to Rev. And then in college, the wife and I started dating. We knew one another in high school. We went to 2 different high schools, and we dated. and she was Catholic. So I started going with her, not because I wanted to go to church. That's because I was wanting to date her and get closer to her. I was set up in the choir loft with her. Her cousin was the cantor there. And I thought, man, this guy, this Yeshua, they said Jesus, Yahushua, was very, very interesting. So that kind of interwoven into our relationship. And then we married on April 9th, 1976. And every year has been incredible, incredible. And I've put her through a lot because of these health challenges. And the one I want to share about is the near-death experience and a stroke. But the near-death experience is first that I want to share. About a year and a half before my near-death experience, I met Father Tom in Michigan. I have a group of men that take care of me, and because I have at times have trouble walking, and they're amazing. So we went up to Michigan on like a sabbatical long weekend, and I saw this old Franciscan priest had a little yarmulke on his head, radiating this amazing energy. I fell in love with him, didn't even know who he was. The next day after I saw him and I had a chat, a very close, in a little room, and we had a conversation. I had my cane, he had his cane, and when he would touch me to emphasize his point, this energy just it like crackled, which I've heard a lot of spirits do this in ceremonies, crackled the atmosphere. And when he did it, the energy just blew into me when he would speak. And what he said, he touched his heart like this, and he had his other hand on his cane. Then he touched me, and he said, I am preparing to die. You need to prepare to die. It was in love. It was in that high energy of pure love. And his words were real. I knew they were real. I knew this was going to happen. So after that weekend and I came home, we started planning. I had a lot of friends, family, saying he's lost. He's lost something upstairs. We went and had our will done. And in 2018, things started to happen to set the stage for the near-death experience. I had an angel one night. Diane was asleep in bed, and I got up. I came out of the bathroom, and there was this angel sitting on my side of the bed, kind of dressed in Western clothes, all white, big smile, had one leg over the other, swinging it. And he said, "Are you ready?" And I knew what he meant. Was I ready to cross over right then and there? And I said, "Not yet." And he had this big smile, and just he was gone, and I went right to sleep, to be honest with you. A few weeks later, I'm sitting at the table in the kitchen. It's right next to the door where I spend a lot of time outside on the back deck of Oneness. And our Takini, our Australian shepherd, saw it first. He's real connected to energies that come in. And he looked up and I saw it, and there was this angelic being, some would say a Merkaba, pure love. And the same thing, it was very loving, very amazing, powerful energy. And it said, are you ready to cross over? But no, not quite, quite yet. But the things after that, till November 29th, I could write a book on just native ceremonies, Lakota ceremonies that I do. I don't lead them. I'm not a sun dancer, but I participate in them. All these things were telling me it's going to happen, and it's going to happen. I had another friend that went to Michigan 2 weeks after we came home in 2017 that I've referred to, and that Father Tom had passed. He had passed 2 weeks after he told me that he had crossed over. So now back to 2018. And some of the most mystical experiences were preparing me for what was going to happen with a near-death experience and the stroke. And I wish I could share lots of it, and I've shared some of it um, with other people. But on the day, November 29th, I was sitting at the table where I write and think and pray and burn incense and candles. It was 8:30 in the morning, and five little gnome friends popped in. You know, they didn't ring the doorbell or knocked on the door. They just popped in. And they told me, quote, "The dark church spirits desire to destroy you," end of quote. And with their little positive energies, and I've known them before, who they are, and they popped back out. So around 2 something in the afternoon, the wife and I we live out in the country on the hill, which is a very big part of Rev's spiritual journey, his sacred walk each day. We ate at Bob Evans, and we had just ordered our food, and they brought coffee, water, coleslaw, and crackers. That's all we had. Our main dish hadn't come yet. And I've always had a swallowing disorder, and it felt like I had something stuck in my throat. The wife did. I stood up, and I was going to get the rollator, go into the restroom, like I've done many times, and try to get this, whatever it was, out. But before I could do that, I felt this dark energy that I've experienced and I've wrestled with physically in the past years. I felt that my nemesis, it was just like this crushing weight, and I collapsed and went unconscious on the floor. My wife tried to do the Heimlich. Susan manager, Susie did the Heimlich, and I came through for a few seconds, and something said, "That's a police officer," and he was trying to do the Heimlich, and then the life squad and the fire truck came. That I later found out. So they put me in the life squad. Then they sat there for 15 minutes trying to figure out what was wrong with me. They didn't know whether to take me further to the bigger city for the heart or what it was, or take it to the local hospital. And they sat there, and it drove my wife crazy. But I heard the word clear, and my body shook. The next thing I knew, I was gone. And the first person I went to was Grandpa Foolscrow, who's probably, many say he was the most sacred native elder in North America in the 1900s. And I've visited him many times spiritually. And I had a great talk with him. Then he sent me on to the bridge, to the tunnel that so many people have. But when I got up there, and directions are very important to me, I was entering the east and I was going west. And on the south wall, when I was walking, I saw two men, Father Tom in the middle, and two women on the right side. They were couples, ancestors that are with me at all ceremonies. They were there supporting me. Father Tom, the one that I'd talked to a year and a half before, told me to prepare. He was up there smiling and said hello to me. And when I looked back, the five gnomes were back there walking what we call a heyoka, had their hands held, going in the counterclockwise direction to reverse these energies. And as I walked on, there's the glorious energies and the light. And I looked back one more time, and I had a Navajo friend alive. He hadn't crossed over, but he was there too. And he said, "Get your whatchamacallit back here now." And then this incredible voice said, "One more step, and you will not return to your body." And I looked back at the gnomes. I had no thought of family or anything. And I thought, wow, okay. So as soon as I turned around to head back east, I thought I was in a coffin. I was in a machine that was x-raying my brain. And I said, God, where am I? And this sweet female voice told me I was in a McCullough Hyde, the local hospital. And when I came out of all of that, and I'm still in the hospital, I couldn't talk. I could hardly walk. I would mumble my words. And our daughter Hannah remembered remembered that the weekend before, my friend, Navajo friend that was up there, we had a ceremony, and he had gifted me with some Navajo medicine. So Hannah called him and said, how do we use this Navajo medicine? So I like to, when I go out in the spirit and travel, so they had to put red cloths on my hands, on my legs, and the family would hold that as this medicine was applied to my body physically. And one of the good friends, Meadow Walker, was with a feather, a sacred feather, chanting healing energies. And to make it short, after, gee whiz, 2 hours, I was back to normal. The doctors couldn't believe it because they were going to send me to neurology departments down in Cincinnati and here and do this and do that. It blew their circuits. They all had to come in and say, what happened? And so I shared that's what happened. But if I want to share one more little thing that happened called the stroke. In 2021, I had a stroke, and I had happened earlier in the day, and the wife noticed. She was a labor and delivery nurse for 44, 45 years, and she knew I was different. So she packed everything up, and I want to make it real quick. And we went down to the hospital. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know who my family was. And eventually, within a couple, I didn't know what clock was. I didn't know how to text, type, shower, floss, all those things. And it even had more problems and walking. And on about the fourth day, I was there 13 days. About the third or fourth day, an entity, a very high density being came in of pure love, and stayed with me for about an hour. And after this being left, the room was filled with the residue of this love. Nurses would come in. I can remember Dr. Gold. She was a practicing Hindu, my doctor, and her name in her language was Gold or Golden. So I just called her Dr. Gold. And she came in the next morning and said, what is that? I said, that's cosmic divine energy. She started bawling and crying like some of the nurses did. And every day she came in to check, she she's a sweetie pie. She cried. So the near-death experience, one of the big things it did was get me to get into the internet. I've taught in class styles for 41 years, but I wasn't much on the internet at all. But I was supposed to come back and use the internet to talk on pure love. The stroke just amplified the pure love, and the experiences and the mystical experiences have just expanded because of that stroke. And the last time I saw my doctor, I have an appointment coming up with a neurologist. She looked at her watch, which I don't wear one, and she looked at the door and looked at us like she was in a hurry. We were just there for an appointment. And she says, you two are so different. There's always peace around you and love. She's from Bosnia Herzegovina. And she said, I know that you had a stroke, but you didn't have any signs that say that you had a stroke. But I know in here that you had a stroke. And I said, have you ever believed or experienced a spiritual stroke? And her eyes got about that big. And I can't wait for the next appointment to come up. The wounds is a place where the light enters, and it's ever expanding forever. It really is. in my heart thoughts, in my head thoughts, and my essence, inner essence, being one with all that is where we live, with the directions, with the elements. I work with the elements a lot, with the flying ones, the trees, Mother Earth and all her children. That we're one, and we communicate. And I learn a lot from them. So it's kind of Rev's the two biggies, which have just happened here in the last 6 years. But I've always done mystical things, been part of incredible ceremonies that some people are there, they can't believe these things are happening, and portals and people popping out, popping in, and working with native elder spirits and their people, and working with the little people. They are amazing. They're amazing. So
Thank you so much. Wow. I love listening to you talk. It's super encapsulating, and yeah, I can understand what those nurses were talking about, or people that were coming into your room. You do still exude just kind of this energy of love, and that's such a beautiful gift to be able to give back. So yeah, a couple of things came up for me while you were talking. You talked a little bit about gnomes and higher dimensional beings. And I'm wondering
mhm.
if maybe you're willing to chat a little bit more about that. Talk about your conception of things that maybe aren't super mainstream. I'd love to hear more about your connection to these other entities.
With good question. Good question. Awesome one. In our earth ceremonies, some of what we do is called land weaving, bringing healing to the land, to the entities and the energies thereof, whatever piece of land that is. And one of the places we have done that is on Rabbi Earth. That's what we call him. He has a place called the Grove. I've done videos there for different programs, and I have been interviewed there, and it's full. It has a portal, and there's all kinds of the little people that are there. And when I was filming these, just I think that was last year when I was filming, because I asked them permission first. All these entities are there. I said, "Can," and I laid down tobacco. I laid down tobacco for this interview right before I came into. We call this Bitsy, our little studio. So I laid down tobacco and waited. I had all the equipment, but I wanted to make sure I had their permission, that I had the land's permission. Because I've talked to Mother Earth there, and everything was okay. To make sure I did things in a good way, in a sacred way. And in these videos that are out from different places now, people would say, there's a gnome, there's a fairy, there's spirits, there's an animal spirits in the video in the background flying around me. And that's true. And during ceremonies, the gnomes would come out. I call it the first Thursday. It was one of the most important Thursdays leading up to my near-death experience. It was in May of 2018. And it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. They put on a ceremony for Rev, thousands of entities, thousands, to prepare me to lead a ceremony the following Thursday to bring healing to the land. And I can remember I was offering tobacco as thanks for what I was experiencing. I was in the middle of it when I was offering tobacco. And I looked over, and there was two of my gnome buddies, two of them. They were giggling. They were behind a tree that had a fork in it. And I was trying to get I didn't want to get too close, but I was offering them thanks and offering them love. They love our inner energies to do that. And I can remember them giggling and laughing. This place is full of those entities. And to the side, that we call a spirit path. And they're fairies. It's just, people can't believe it. It's just part of that life on that piece of land. There's one more place called the Meadow. Meadow. My friend Meadow Walker, when we're at ceremony, she'll play the flute. So many little people come out dancing, singing, and it's just like it's unbelievable the energy they give and that we give. It's that way we're working in unity. And that's one of the things, working with the land and the ceremonies, that we're one, working with these higher energies and we're one, doing the exact same thing. They need us, I need them, and it's amazing for Rev what I've
How
experienced.
how can like a regular person who maybe has never conceptualized this or doesn't even know how to go about calling on seeing something like this, if they're open-minded enough, do you have any kind of tangible tools to tell people on how to begin to contact other kinds of entities?
Wow. For me, it's just been, that's a very good question, the $1 million question. Because since I was a kid in the woods, all this has just been part of who I am since I was a kid. And being involved in Lakota ceremonies, well, I have a lot of friends that are sun dancers that lead sweat lodges. And we've seen lots of little people during these ceremonies. But being connected to creation, they're everywhere. I've seen them in the cities. And believing in them, believing that there's more beyond this 3D reality, which I believe we said yes to come here at this time, that they do happen. And I know we can't get everybody here to go do a ceremony, but we've created a lot of believers in the little people when they've come to this ceremony. But being part of that day of the near death experience, first initiating it there on November 29th, and then them being wherever we were at up there reversing those energies. There's lots of books and stories and tales and native. The Mohegan people from the East Coast, Northeast, have a wonderful. I just shared this um, on a program. They have a wonderful story online about the little people asking a medicine woman from that tribe to come and heal their medicine woman who was sick. Again, different energies coming together for the same purpose. And working with these energies is what attracts them. And not a lot of people are able to do that when we're working with the land. We've worked with Indian mounds to neutralize them because they had lots of dark energies from people that didn't know how to utilize that land in sacred ways. But for me, it's just been natural. They've come to. It's not like I go out and call for them. They come. They come to Rev. A lot of times, I used to have a touchstone light by our bed. It and it crossed over. It lost its light and it crossed over. But I'd ask them questions. They would answer by the taps on the light. Almost every night, this would happen. But now they come every night. The family of these come and put me to bed every night since October, which I believe there's a big shift on our planet of energies. And ever since then, it's like they're checking on me, and there's orbs, and I see all kinds of things, and it's love. And they're attracted to that love. They're attracted to living simply. Rev and his wife, we live very simple lives. And I know they're attracted to both of those things, pure love and a simple life. And it's like they're here to help Rev. It's not like I've called on them. The last time I had a really bad choking spell, I was out by what I call our south gate. And I asked for them. The wife wasn't around. I asked for them, and here they came, the five of them, and whatever it was, they removed it. That was several years ago. So it's like they come to Rev. So it's not like I can sit and say, this, you do this, because I spend hours in creation on the earth since we live simple lives. And that's the reason the trees speak. The praying mantis, they are great teachers, Betty. They are. The birds, the hummingbirds communicate amazing things. I know a lot of people say, wow, there's something wrong with that Rev Ned, but that's okay. The joy and the love, people drive by our house on our country road, they feel the energy. When they're here, they feel the energy because we do land healing ceremonies and blessings on our land, and people can feel it when they drive by.
I don't doubt it. I feel it right now. So I have no doubt that your energy is very attractive and can be felt by other people. And thank you for sharing about the fact that this is what I heard you say. This is something that you get from working the land. This is something that you get from expressing unconditional love. And, again, like the open-mindedness, being open to believing that there are things that we cannot see with our regular human sight. So I really love that. And there is something that I wanted for you to share about, only because I do know some of your story personally. But we were talking before we started recording about the fact that you had this near-death experience, and I wanted to ask you what has your experience been like with your medical doctors? Because I know that you have kind of a unique circumstance. A lot of people who watch our videos or who have had near-death experiences themselves, some of them get institutionalized when they talk about their experience. Some of them have horrendous things happen to them. And your experience is quite different. So I'd love to hear you share about your experience with that.
Well, I have chronic Lyme disease. So I had a chronic Lyme doctor, Dr. Morse, 11 years ago, 11 years ago. And he could not believe my energies. He said, you shouldn't be walking. This was like the second year after being diagnosed. I was diagnosed wrong for 6 months and by another doctor, and I was on the wrong medication, all that. But when Dr. Morse got a hold of me and found out that I did have chronic um, Lyme disease, and after about 2 or 3, 4 months, he said, you're not supposed to be walking. You should be in a bed or in a chair. What are you doing? Now, I was using a cane at the time. What are you doing? So he took me out, and he became a believer. He became a believer. Our family doctor became a believer, and then he left to move to Florida. And then I went through a set of other doctors that I knew they wouldn't fit Rev's energies. And then about 2 years ago, a young female doctor that became a doctor to my wife, she was enthralled about the energy between the wife and I. And she had it put in the charts. So it's in all the medical charts of all the things that have happened to me. And I've told you about um, my neurologist, who's from Bosnia Herzegovina. She's just amazed, and she's put a stamp on that there's something different about Rev Ned. When I had the stroke, a nurse came in right when the doctor did it and wrote in my charts, there's something interesting about this guy, and this is a miracle. He shouldn't be doing the things that he's doing. Wrote it into my charts. So I've been blessed. I don't know if it's all the extra helpers that are sitting there and maybe nudging and talking in their ears or something, but I've heard some of the horrific doctors that a lot of people have had in their near-death experience. And I again, I think it's just the simple lifestyle, which is so counterculture, which I share a lot, but trying to be that vessel, working very hard to cleanse whatever's inside so that divine cosmic love can flow. And I think it touches the doctors. And I'm sure I have a little help from from my friends, Betty.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that it's beautiful just to be able to articulate the different kinds of situations that happen to people after their experiences, because just like our experiences are completely unique and individual, with, I feel like for a lot of us, the underlying message is unconditional love, but they are almost like it's tailored to our personality. I mean, you talked about pieces of your own experience that I could never conceptualize or definitely were not part of my experience. And I love that about the, it's infinite. It's so big. And you've also had these very different interactions with Western doctors. And I can't help but think that that's part of your life plan in some way to be able to share this information too.
We were I was asked to set up my altar. We had a Navajo, I referred to my friend who's Navajo. We had a Navajo bear ceremony for our daughter. In the meadow that I referred to earlier were a lot of little people. And he'd asked me to remarry our daughter and son-in-law that I had married several years before that. And he said, we're going to make it part of the bear ceremony. So I had my altar set up. Um, Aaron had his altar set up. And I was over there by my altar and giving thanks to the energy to the meadows. And I asked the Pleiadians, I said, because I knew where they were, where the Pleiades were at that evening in the sky. And I said, can you circle them in love for this ceremony? That's all I asked. And I gave thanks to the Creator, the land, to Mother Earth, and all her helpers, and the four directions and the elements. And when it came time for me to marry them by the sacred fire, because our fires are built in a very special way, in a very sacred way. This tube, and everybody saw it, this transparent tube came down from where the Pleiades were at, because we couldn't see where it ended, of course, and it surrounded Hannah and Matt, and it was pure love. I was given the energies, the grace, if you will, to not, usually I go out in the spirit when there's so much incredible divine energy. I just go out, and a lot of times I'll travel. That's the reason they had to put the red sacred claws on me when they were putting the Navajo medicine in me during the hospital stay from the near-death experience. And this tube came down and stayed. As soon as I was done, it it popped up. The little people loved that. It was like, again, here we are, all working together, the little people, Mother Earth and all her children, and the four directions and the elements were all involved in that, working with something like that energy of the plate. It was amazing. So to me, it's just what's going to be. Every day is mystical for me. The chores, my chores that I do daily, I look at them as sacred, simple things to do, and they become really mystical. There's that Zen parable I think a lot of people have had. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Because to me, that's where some of the most precious energies, transformations happen, are the little things in life that a lot of people don't bother with. Just doing the dishes for me, these energies it's amazing. It's amazing just doing that. But
I
being, I'm 70, so I have a lot of years of experience on a lot of people also. The old hermit on the hill.
I love that. I love that outlook on life. washing the dishes can be a sacred experience. For me,
Very
I
much so.
treat chores as a very creative experience too. This is an opportunity for me to express my creativity in the way that I organize my house, the way that I clean my home. Like all of these things are very creative, and creativity, the breath of life. I've really enjoyed talking with you today, and yeah, giving you an opportunity to express yourself to our community here at
Thank you.
IANDS. I'm wondering
Thank
if
you.
there's anything else that you'd like to share to feel more complete about our time together.
Thank you. There is. I have a very close Cherokee elder that I'm very close to. Her name's Sher. She's a well-known folk artist, really around the world. I've known her for a long time. She's the one, even 30 years ago, would teach me so much about the little people, about, she was one of the spirit protectors of the Serpentine Mound when she lived in Ohio. And she's given me a lot of this knowledge about healing the land. And I got to talk with her a few days ago. She's 70, 76. She lives down in a holler in North Carolina. Lives very, very, very simple. But one of the things I wanted to share, and I've done this spiritually with Fool's Crow when I've gone to visit him. But when Cher and I were talking on the video chat, and she would not say anything. Sometimes there was quiet space, and for a lot of people, that's uncomfortable, especially maybe on an interview. But what I've learned from the elders like Cher, even when they're not speaking, they're teaching. The energies are radiating out from them. And I've been so blessed to be around people that are that connected to the land, to the earth mother, to the elements, to the directions, to all kinds of beings. So she's planted many, many seeds in my life. And I would have to say thank you to, we call her Cher Bear, Grandma Cher, to her. And that just, like I said, that just happened 4 or 5 days ago. We were just sitting online. I'm sitting there getting all this information. She's not saying anything. Very, very powerful. But I wanted to, there's many elders that are like that. And a lot of the spirit keepers, like at the Serpentine Mount, that they can't find replacements for them because of where people are at spiritually in their heart thoughts and their head thoughts and with their essence. And that's something that's concerning to me all over the country. And so she's told me, taught me many, many things about that. And she's given me some tips. And someday when I grow up, I want to have a big smile like yours.
I paid for this. Thank you. I'm so grateful for you, Rev. Really, I've enjoyed this time so much. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Blessings. Bye-bye.